Okay, so we're very happy to kick off the conference. We're going to be talking about the immaterial turn. Like this whole track is about the immaterial turn. But my talk is going to frame the types of techniques we're going to be addressing. So this is opportunities for paranormal game studies techniques. And this work was co-authored with Courtney Blamey, Anna-Kaisa Kultima, and Vadim Nikkel. All right, so game studies has a history of being concerned with ghosts and ghostly presences. This dates back to early work by game AI researchers in terms of trying to understand Pac-Man ghost behavior. There was like a real kind of like quantitative scientific effort to try and understand exactly what these ghosts were doing. But it wasn't just within game AI spaces that ghosts were a concern. In fact, ghosts, or something like ghosts, you can think about them as concepts, you can think about them as apparitions or visions, you can think about them as abstract knowledge, you can think about them as abstract best practice. These are all types of ghosts that game studies researchers had been grappling with. And in a sense, we're also even being haunted by designer ghosts. So the sorts of ideas that certain designers were putting out, and likewise scholar ghosts, ideas that particular scholars were putting out, and that were having huge influence on our ways of thinking and progressing the research domain. So one of the difficulties with dealing with all of these ghosts in our game studies spaces was that all of this research was being conducted by mediums. Okay, so the mediums were tasked with translating what they could pick up from the ghosts, and they had to translate this into written word for publication because that was really the only viable way to get the knowledge out there and to get that knowledge respected. Okay, but there was a problem of medium specificity because the types of insights that people were articulating were very specific to their own perspective. And critics would argue that they were just making up the messages. Like there was no way for people to ensure that the medium was conveying the right message. And then another another persistent difficulty was that there was a lot of like body of creative work shaming going on, where bodies of creative work weren't being treated with equivalent recognition as bodies of more typical peer-reviewed academic output, like you know, meta surveys of the literature or journal publications. There really was no way to just say, hey, here's a body, it's amazing, let's show the body. Like that's not something that people were interested in. They're like, let's go for the ghosts, let's publish what we can tell about the ghosts, but we have no room for bodies. Okay, so the turning point, we call this the immaterial turn. And the immaterial turn signaled the invention of techniques, well, of firstly of devices that were actually able to turn the immaterial into the material. Okay, so two of the most well-known devices are the ERR, the ectoplasmic revenant reverser, and the spectral finder Z5500. And we think about this as a turning point because not only did it now did it now become possible to sort of measure and quantify spectral matter, i.e., ghosts. But for game studies, this became this becomes a tool in our research arsenal, and it enables reunification. Okay, so reunification is reuniting ghosts with their bodies. So we're now able to confidently measure, document, and report about the multiple ghosts that are haunting our research spaces. And because we are capturing the immaterial as material, we can now like confidently analyze it. Okay, we can come up with truly grounded theory. So this is here's like a list of the techniques that we learned about from our Indian psychic friend who works in Toronto. He is taking bookings. He's still got slots available, so totally sign up. He didn't want his name listed as a co-author, but really he should be here as well. But these are some of the techniques that he introduced to us that we think could be appropriated to game studies. One of these is best practices for post-mortems. So the thing that he pointed out is that post-mortems, we showed him what like game industry post-mortems looked like, and he was just appalled. He was like, no, this is not how to do a post-mortem. Why have you turned this into a boo yay story with a very set narrative? This is basically just marketing material. They were like, oh, okay, we should really stop doing that. So he's got excellent pointers on how to do a proper post-mortem. We also he also taught us about dead languages and dead debates, right? So it's like ludology, narratology. This debate may as well take place in Latin because they're both dead. Okay, there's particular techniques that we should all be learning in terms of how to commune with the living dead. Because of course there's the dead, but then there's a lot of living dead as well. And technically we are all living dead. And then there's auto medium practices. So I mean, we have our own ghosts. So how do we observe our own ghosts? How do we do it well? And what are the problems to look out for? Something that our friend in Toronto does often is he transforms demons into angels. He was like, you know what, for researchers and makers alike, that could be something that helps you. And then we talked about imposter syndrome is when you're being haunted by your own ghost. And he pointed out that that's kind of silly and redundant, and we should really just stop. And then also yes-anding with immaterial thinkers. How do we do that? And then last but not least, embracing transparency when you don't know what it looks like. Okay, so that's the sort of straight up standard paranormal techniques. But because reunification is now a thing, we're thinking about the newly reintroduced corporeal possibilities. These include reverse exorcism. So reverse exorcism is reunifying ghosts with their bodies, or you can think about this as connecting ideas with materials and objects. There's mindful archiving. So this is a way to reunite mind and body, thought and material. There's also something we've been experimenting with on Vadim is contemporary vivisection technique. We got him to try it out on himself. I think he's okay. Vadim, are you okay? I don't think oh, maybe he's not okay. Um, all right. I mean, we'll have to check in with him again. And then
Correct.
finally there's, oh, thank God.
Knock knock.
Yeah, are you okay, man? Okay. All right. Okay. Okay, and last but not least, there's a exquisite corpse as a collaboration strategy. Now I'm just realizing that there's some Vadim, there's some EMF. You got some like ERR pickup somewhere, didn't you? Where was that?
The
Can you hear that?
We need to check on Vadim after the presentation. Maybe he's not completely back in his
Sadly,
He's,
cannot hear that.
himself.
You may
Yeah.
need to share audio.
Share audio. Okay, you know what? You can just we'll make our materials available because there's a lot here for you to all dig into. Yeah. Yeah. So we're gonna end by talking about ethics. So Courtney, do you want to take over from here?
Yeah, so one of the things obviously doing paranormal game studies is that we have there was an emergent issue in the practice, which was possessions. Sometimes doing this work meant that our researchers were being possessed. And so now, in order to conduct this research, we have to make sure we go through an ethics board review, that it complies with contingency measures with possession, so that we have plans in case one of our researchers do get possessed, or if that we are planning a possession, that there is informed consent around that. We also have a spirit classification for any severity of the spirit, whether how intense they have their arguments or not. But we have, in organizing this kind of committee around that, recognized that really the risk is very equal to spending a lot of time reading a specific scholar for a long amount of time. Is almost a similar level of possession. So we feel like it's not too transgressive to worry about. But yeah, that's something we want to take very seriously as we approach these kinds of research practices.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the end of that initial survey. If you're interested in any of those techniques, reach out to us and we can we'll commune with our friend as well in Toronto and get the lowdown for you all.